The lights in the classroom made a soft humming sound. Instructor Velith checked her datapad again. She had been a teacher at the Galactic Integration Academy for 40 years. She had taught children from 100 different worlds. But today, something felt wrong in her stomach. Her 4 eyes looked at the list of students. There was a new name at the bottom. A human name. Emma Clark. Velith had heard many things about humans. Everyone in the galaxy had heard about them. They came from a planet called Earth. The scientists called it a Deathworld. Everything on that planet wanted to kill everything else. The weather was extreme. The animals were dangerous. The diseases were terrible. And somehow, humans had survived all of it. They had survived because they were predators. Their eyes faced forward like hunters. They could run for hours without stopping. They could heal from injuries that would kill most species. They ate meat. They formed bonds with anything, even dangerous animals. They kept wolves as pets. They rode on the backs of massive beasts for fun. The other teachers had warned Velith about this day. The Integration Council had decided that human children needed to attend regular classes. They said it would help the galaxy accept humans as friends, instead of monsters. Velith was not so sure. The door to the classroom slid open. A small human walked inside. She had brown hair tied into 2 braids. Her face had small brown spots that humans called freckles. Her eyes were blue like water. She was holding a stuffed toy animal against her chest. She looked around the room and smiled. Velith watched her students react to the human. The 3 Grellox children pressed together. They were made of something like jelly, and they shook with fear. Young Dex pulled his hard shell around himself until only his eyes showed. Little Zix, who was usually brave, moved to the far corner of the room. Her wing membranes were trembling. They all knew what humans were. "Class," Bella said, trying to keep her voice calm, "please welcome Emma Clark. She is from Earth." "Hi, everyone," Emma said. Her voice was soft and friendly. "I'm really happy to meet you all." Nobody answered her. The room was completely silent. "You may sit in any open seat," Velith told her. Emma looked around the classroom. Most of the seats were taken. The other students had made sure to spread out, so there was no room near them. But there was one empty seat. It was next to a student who always sat alone, thought it was next to Krath. Velith felt her body go cold. Krath was a Vorn. His species came from a planet that was almost as dangerous as Earth. The Vorn were hunters. They had fur with dark stripes. They had claws that could cut through metal. Their eyes could see in complete darkness. They were feared across 3 whole sectors of the galaxy. Krath had been placed in this class because his parents were diplomats. The Integration Council wanted to show that even Vorn could learn to live peacefully with other species. But it had not been easy. Krath growled at anyone who came too close. He sat alone because nobody was brave enough to sit near him. And now the human girl was walking directly toward him. Velith wanted to stop her. She wanted to call out and tell Emma to sit somewhere else. But her voice would not work. She could only watch. Emma sat down in the chair next to Krath. The Vorn cub turned to look at her. His ears went flat against his head. His amber eyes narrowed. His claws came out from his fingers just a little bit. Emma did not seem afraid at all. "Hi," she said to him. "I'm Emma. What's your name?" Krath stared at her. Among his people, you did not speak to strangers. You watched them. You decided if they were prey or threat or something to ignore. You did not introduce yourself with a smile. But there was something about this small creature that confused him. She had the eyes of a predator. Her teeth showed when she smiled, which should have been a challenge. Everything about her should have made him defensive. Instead, he found himself answering. "Krath," he said. His voice was low and rough. "That's a really cool name," Emma said. "I like your fur. The stripes are pretty." "Pretty," No one had ever called him pretty. His stripes were meant to help him hide in shadows. They were for hunting. They were not pretty, but the way Emma said it made him feel strange. Not angry, just confused. Velith watched from the front of the classroom. Her hands were shaking. She had two apex predators sitting next to each other. Two children from Deathworlds. Two species that had evolved to kill. This was a mistake. This was a terrible mistake. She thought about calling for help. She thought about sending an emergency message to the headmaster. She thought about separating them immediately, but she did nothing. She just watched. Emma opened her bag and pulled out a small container. Do you want to see what I brought for lunch? My dad made it this morning. Krath leaned closer to look. His nose twitched as he smelled the contents. What is it? It's called a peanut butter sandwich. Have you ever tried human food? No. Do you want to try some later? We could share. Krath did not know what to say. Sharing food was important among his people. It meant trust. It meant pack. You did not share food with strangers. Maybe, he said finally. Emma smiled even bigger. Okay, maybe is good. She turned to face the front of the class as Velith began the lesson. Krath kept looking at her from the corner of his eye. He did not understand this human. She was small. She had no claws. She had no armor. She was soft and breakable, but she was not afraid of him. Nobody had ever been unafraid of him before. Velith tried to teach her lesson, but she could not focus. She kept looking at the human and the Vorn sitting side by side. She kept waiting for something terrible to happen. The other students kept looking too. They whispered to each other in their own languages. They pointed with tentacles and claws and antennae. They could not believe what they were seeing. The Deathworld girl sat next to the predator cub like it was the most normal thing in the world. And when the lesson ended and the students got up to leave, Emma waved goodbye to Krath. See you tomorrow, she said. Krith just nodded. He did not know what else to do. After all the students had gone, Velith sat alone in her classroom. She put her head in her hands and tried to breathe slowly. She had made a mistake. She should have controlled the seating. She should have kept them apart. Now a human child and a Vorn cub had made contact, and she had no idea what would happen next. All she knew was that nothing would ever be the same. 1 week passed at the Galactic Integration Academy. Instructor Velith had not slept well during that entire week. She came to school early every morning. She stayed late every evening. She watched the classroom cameras. During her breaks. She was waiting for disaster. She had sent 17 reports to the headmaster. Each report explained the danger. Each report asked for the human child and the Vorn cub to be separated. Each report described what might happen if two predators from Deathworlds were allowed to sit together. None of her reports had been answered. On the 8th day, Velith arrived at the cafeteria during lunchtime. She expected to find the students sitting in their usual groups. The Grelok's children always sat together in a wet corner. Dex always sat alone inside his shell. Zix always sat near the window where the light was good for her wings. But something was different. Today. Emma Clark was sitting at a table in the middle of the room. Krath was sitting across from her, and Emma was holding out half of her sandwich. Try it, Emma said. I promise it tastes good. Krath sniffed the food. It smells like crushed plants and old fruit. That's exactly what it is. Peanut butter is made from nuts. Jelly is made from fruit. Together, they're amazing. The Vorn cub looked at the sandwich for a long moment. Then he took it carefully from her hand. His claws did not scratch her skin. He was being gentle. Velith felt her legs go weak. She had to hold onto a table to stay standing. Krath bit into the sandwich. He chewed slowly. His face showed no expression. Well? Emma asked. Do you like it? It is very sweet, Krath said. but not bad. Emma laughed. It was a bright, happy sound. Some of the other students looked over at them with surprise. Nobody had ever heard laughter at that table before. Tomorrow I'll bring you something different, Emma said. My dad makes really good cheese sandwiches too. You would bring food for me? Of course. That's what friends do. Friends? The word hung in the air between them. Krath did not have friends. He had never had friends. His species was too feared, and he was too aggressive. Everyone stayed away from him, but this small human girl used that word like it was simple. Like friendship was easy. Like all you had to do was share a sandwich, and suddenly you were not alone anymore. Krath did not know what to say. So he just took another bite of the sandwich. Velith watched them for the rest of lunch. She watched Emma talk about her life on Earth. She watched Krath listen quietly, his ears turning toward her whenever she spoke. She watched them walk together to their next class, side by side, like they had known each other for years instead of days. That evening, Velith was called to the headmaster's office. Headmaster Gorvax was a large creature with a body, like a tree trunk and arms like thick branches. He sat behind his desk with two Vorn diplomats on one side and a human woman in military uniform on the other side. Instructor Velith, Gorvax said, "We have reviewed your reports." "Thank you, Headmaster." "Then you understand the danger. Two predator species sitting together, forming bonds. The potential for violence is extreme. We must separate them before something terrible happens." The human woman spoke. Her name was Commander Patricia Valdez. She was the education officer from Earth. "I have watched all the camera recordings from your classroom," Commander Valdez said. "I have seen everything that happened between Emma and Krath over the past week." "Then you see the problem," Valdez said. "The human is using food to create obligation. She is staying close to prevent the Vorn from making other alliances. This is predator behavior. She is establishing dominance over him." Commander Valdez looked at Velith for a long moment. Then she said something that Velith did not expect. "She is making a friend. That is what human children do." The female Vorn diplomat spoke next. Her fur was silver and carefully brushed. Her amber eyes were calm. "Our son Krath has communicated more in the past week than in the entire year before," she said. "He talks about Emma every night. He asked us to buy him something called a coloring book so he could do activities with her. He has never asked us for anything before." Velith could not believe what she was hearing. But the risk, the danger. "Surely you can see. I see two children," Headmaster Gorvax interrupted. "I see two young people from difficult backgrounds learning to trust each other. I do not see monsters." "You have let your fear cloud your judgment," Commander Valdez added. "Humans and Vorn have more in common than you think. We both come from hard worlds. We both learn to survive by being strong. But we also learn that strength means nothing without connection." Velith wanted to argue. She wanted to explain all the terrible things she had imagined. But looking at the faces around her, she realized something. She was the only one who was afraid. That night, Velith sat alone in her home and watched the classroom recordings from the beginning. She watched the first day when Emma sat down next to Krath. She watched the second day when Emma showed Krath how to play a human game called tic-tac-toe. She watched the third day when Krath let Emma touch his fur without pulling away. She watched the fourth day when Emma fell down during outdoor time and scraped her knee. She watched Krath immediately move to stand between her and the rest of the students, his body tense and ready to protect her while she cried. She watched the fifth day when they sat together. During quiet reading time, Emma leaned against Krath's warm side while she read out loud from a picture book. The Vorn cub's eyes were half closed. He looked peaceful. He looked happy. Velith turned off the recordings. She had been wrong. She had looked at Emma and Kroth and seen only their species. She had seen predators. She had seen danger. She had seen everything the galaxy had taught her to fear. But she had not seen them. She had not seen the lonely human girl who just wanted a friend. She had not seen the isolated Vorn cub who had never known kindness. She had almost ruined everything. The next morning, Velith arrived at school early. She went to her classroom and moved the desks around. She put Emma's desk and Krath's desk together in a place where they would have more room. She put comfortable cushions on their chairs. When the students arrived, Emma noticed the change immediately. "Instructor Velith," she said with surprise. "You moved our seats." "Yes," Velith replied. "I thought you and Krath might like to sit together more comfortably." Krath looked at the teacher with his amber eyes. For a moment, something passed between them. Understanding, perhaps. Or forgiveness. "Thank you," Krath said quietly. It was the first time he had ever thanked anyone at the academy. Velith nodded and began her lesson. But inside she made herself a promise. She would stop seeing species. She would start seeing students. She would learn from these two children who had more courage than she had ever shown. It was not too late to change. 2 months had passed since Emma Clark first sat down next to Krath. The classroom had changed in ways that Instructor Velith had never expected. Krath no longer growled at the other students. He still did not talk much, but he did not threaten anyone either. He walked through the hallways with his shoulders relaxed. His claws stayed inside his fingers. The fear that had surrounded him like a cloud was slowly going away. Emma had made other friends too. The Grellox triplets had started sitting closer to her during lunch. Vex had asked if he could join her study group. Even Zix had stopped being so nervous around the human girl. But Krath was still Emma's closest friend. Everyone could see that today was a special day. The class was going on a field trip to the Nexus Botanical Gardens. It was a huge building filled with plants from 1,000 different worlds. Velith had planned this trip for months. She had checked all the safety rules. She had assigned parent helpers. She had prepared for every problem she could think of. She had not prepared for what actually happened. The class arrived at the gardens in the morning. The students were excited. They had never seen so many strange plants before. There were trees with purple leaves. There were flowers that glowed in the dark. There were vines that moved on their own like slow snakes. "Stay together," Velith told her students. "Do not touch anything unless I say it is safe. Do not wander away from the group." For the first hour, everything was perfect. The students learned about plants from different planets. They saw a flower that only bloomed once every 100 years. They watched a tree that could walk very slowly from place to place. Then the alarm started screaming. "Warning," a voice announced over the speakers. "Specimens in Greenhouse 7 have escaped containment. All visitors must go to the nearest shelter immediately. This is not a drill." Velith's body went cold. Greenhouse 7 held the carnivorous plants. The ones that hunted. The ones that were dangerous. "Everyone follow me," she shouted. "Stay calm. Move quickly." But her students were not calm. The Grellox triplets rolled away in 3 different directions. Vex pulled completely inside his shell and would not come out. Zix started releasing fear chemicals that made everyone feel sick. Velith tried to count her students as she pushed them toward the shelter. She counted once. She counted twice. Something was wrong. "Where is Emma?" Krath's voice cut through the chaos. Velith looked around frantically. The human girl was not with them. "She went to the bathroom," one of the Grellox said in a shaking voice. "She said she would be right back." That was before the alarm. Krath did not wait for permission. He did not wait for instructions. He turned and ran back into the gardens before Velith could stop him. "Krath, no?" Velith screamed. "You have to stay with the group." But the Vorn cub was already gone, disappearing into the thick plants like a shadow. Velith stood frozen. She had 12 other students who needed her protection. She could not leave them alone. But now she had a human child lost somewhere in the gardens and a Vorn cub running toward danger. All she could do was get her remaining students to safety and pray. The shelter was cold and bright. The other students huddled together while Velith tried to contact the rescue teams. Minutes passed. They felt like hours. Velith kept looking at the door. She kept hoping. She kept fearing. Then she saw movement outside. 2 shapes coming through the plants. One small with brown hair. One larger with striped fur. Emma and Krath walked into the shelter together. Emma looked calm. She was not hurt. She was not crying. One of her hands rested on Krath's shoulder. The Vorn cub was walking very close to her, his body tense, his eyes watching everything around them. Behind them, Velith could see something lying on the ground far away. It was one of the escaped specimens. It was not moving. "I'm sorry we scared everyone," Emma said. "Krath found me really fast. He's really good at finding things." Velith stared at the Vorn cub. "Krath, the specimen behind you. It tried to hurt Emma," Krath said simply. His voice was flat. His eyes were hard. "I stopped it." The way he said those words made Velith understand something important. Krath had not just found Emma. He had protected her. When a dangerous creature had threatened his friend, he had done whatever was necessary to keep her safe. Emma did not seem bothered at all. She just squeezed Krath's shoulder and smiled at him. "He was really brave," she said. "The plant thing jumped out at me and I screamed, and then Krath was just there. He was so fast. I didn't even see him move." Krath's ears went flat with embarrassment. "It was nothing. It was everything," Emma said firmly. "You saved me." The rescue teams arrived a few minutes later. They secured the remaining escaped plants and helped everyone leave the garden safely. Velith sat with her students on the transport vehicle going back to the academy. Emma had fallen asleep. Her head was resting against Krath's side, and she was breathing slowly and peacefully. Krath had one clawed hand on her shoulder. He was watching every adult on the vehicle with quiet warning in his amber eyes. Velith sat down across from them. "You could have been killed," she said softly. "Running into danger like that. It was not smart." "She is my friend," Krath answered. "It was not about being smart. It was necessary." "How did you find her so quickly?" "The gardens are huge." Krath looked at the sleeping human girl. Something soft came into his eyes. "Her scent," he said. "I know what she smells like. I would know it anywhere. I just followed it until I found her." Velith thought about that. She thought about how Krath had memorized Emma's scent. She thought about how he had run toward danger without any hesitation. She thought about the escaped specimen lying still on the ground. "You care about her very much," Velith said. "Yes, and she cares about you." Krath did not answer that. But the way he looked at Emma said everything. When they arrived back at the academy, Emma's father was waiting. He was a tall man with the same brown hair as his daughter. When he saw Emma safe and unharmed, his eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," he said to Krath. "I heard what you did. Thank you for protecting my daughter." Krath did not know how to respond to gratitude. He just nodded once, his ears flat against his head. Emma woke up and hugged her father. Then she turned and hugged Krath too. The Vorn cub stood very still, his arms awkward at his sides. "I'll see you tomorrow," Emma said to him. "Tomorrow," Krath agreed. As the Clark family walked away, Velith watched Krath watch them go. The Vorn cub did not move until Emma disappeared around a corner. Only then did he turn and walk toward his own parents. Velith understood something new about humans that day. They did not just make friends. They made family out of strangers. They made pack out of anyone who would accept them. And once you were part of a human's pack, they would never let you go. Neither would the people who loved them back. 10 years passed like water flowing through a river. Instructor Velith was old now. Her 4 eyes were not as sharp as they used to be. Her body ached when the weather changed. It was time for her to stop teaching and let younger teachers take her place. But before she retired, she had one more thing to do. The graduation ceremony for the Galactic Integration Academy was held in a huge building that could hold thousands of beings from hundreds of different worlds. Students who had completed their training would receive their certificates and begin their new lives as diplomats, scientists, and leaders. Velith had a special seat in the front row. She watched the students walk across the stage one by one. She clapped for each of them with her old, tired hands. But she was waiting for 2 specific names. Emma Clark, the announcer said. Human, Earth. Graduated with highest honors in interspecies communication. A young woman walked onto the stage. She was tall now, and her brown hair was cut short. She wore the uniform of the Galactic Diplomatic Corps with a special badge that showed she was an expert in helping different species understand each other. Velith felt her heart swell with pride. Krath of House Vorn, the announcer continued. Vorn, graduated with highest honors in protective services. A tall figure walked onto the stage beside Emma. Krath had grown into a powerful adult. His striped fur was well-groomed, and his amber eyes were calm and wise. He wore the uniform that showed he was a security specialist for the diplomatic corps. He stood next to Emma like he had always stood next to her. Close enough to protect, far enough to let her lead. They received their certificates together. They bowed to the audience together. They walked off the stage together, just as they had done everything together for the past 10 years. After the ceremony, there was a celebration with food and music. Beings from across the galaxy talked and laughed and congratulated the graduates. Velith found Emma and Krath near the refreshment table. When Emma saw her old teacher, her face lit up with happiness. Instructor Velith, Emma said, pulling the old woman into a gentle hug. I'm so glad you could be here. I would not have missed it for anything, Velith replied. Look at you both. Look at what you have become. She looked at Krath, who stood quietly nearby. The council has given you a very important assignment, I hear. First contact missions on the frontier. Someone has to help new species understand that the galaxy is not as scary as it seems, Emma said. And I have a lot of practice making friends with people who are different from me. And I have a lot of practice keeping Emma safe while she makes those friends, Krath added. There was warmth in his voice and something that might have been humor. Velith looked at them both. She remembered 2 children sitting next to each other in her classroom. She remembered being so afraid that something terrible would happen. She remembered all the reports she had written asking for them to be separated. I made many mistakes back then, Velith said quietly. I looked at you both and saw only your species. I saw predators. I saw danger. I did not see who you really were. Emma took her old teacher's hand gently. You learned. You changed. That is what matters. And you taught others, Krath added. The program you created after we graduated has helped hundreds of students like us. Children who are alone have found friends because of what you built. Velith felt tears forming in her old eyes. I built that program because of you. Both of you. You showed me what was possible. You showed me that fear is a choice, and that friendship is stronger than any wall we build between ourselves. Emma and Krath looked at each other. A whole conversation seemed to pass between them in that single glance. 10 years of friendship. 10 years of trust. 10 years of growing up side by side. "We have something for you," Emma said. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small package. Velith opened it carefully. Inside was a picture frame. The picture showed her old classroom from 10 years ago. In the front row, two small figures sat side by side. A human girl with brown braids. A Vorn cub with striped fur. They were both smiling. "We found that picture in the old school records," Emma explained. "We wanted you to have it, so you could remember how it all started." Velith held the picture close to her chest. She could not speak. The emotions were too strong. "Thank you," she finally managed to say. "Thank you for everything you taught me." Kraft stepped forward and did something surprising. He bowed his head in the traditional Vorn gesture of deep respect. "No," he said. "Thank you. You gave me a seat next to Emma. You could have moved us apart. You could have listened to your fear. But you did not. And because of that, I am not alone anymore." Emma put her arm around Kraft's waist, and he rested one clawed hand on her shoulder. They stood together like two parts of one whole. "We have to go soon," Emma said. "Our ship leaves in the morning. We're heading to the frontier to meet a new species that just discovered space travel. They're scared of the galaxy. They think everything out here wants to hurt them. But you will show them the truth," Velith said. "You will show them that friendship is possible." "We will try," Emma said. "That's all anyone can do." They hugged Velith one more time. Then they walked away together, side by side, ready to face whatever the universe had waiting for them. Velith watched them until they disappeared into the crowd. She looked down at the picture in her hands. The two children in that picture had no idea what they would become. They were just two lonely young people who had found each other by accident, or maybe not by accident. Maybe the universe had known what it was doing all along. The old teacher sat down on a nearby bench and looked up at the stars visible through the clear ceiling of the celebration hall. Somewhere out there, new species were looking up at those same stars and wondering if they were alone. Wondering if the universe was a cold and dangerous place full of monsters. Emma and Kraft would find them. Emma would smile that bright smile of hers and offer her hand in friendship. Kraft would stand beside her, ready to protect anyone who needed protection. Together, they would show the frightened new species that the galaxy was not what they feared. The galaxy was full of people waiting to become family. All you had to do was sit down next to someone different and say hello. Velith smiled and held the picture close. She had made one mistake that had changed everything. She had put a predator cub beside a Deathworld girl and expected disaster. Instead, she had helped create the future, and it was beautiful. The story of what happened at the Botanical Gardens spread quickly through the academy. Everyone heard about how the Vorn cub had run into danger to save the human girl. Everyone heard about how he had fought a carnivorous plant creature. Everyone heard about how two predators from Deathworlds had protected each other. Something changed after that day. Emma and Kraft were not strange anymore. They were not something to fear or avoid. They were heroes. The Grellox triplets started sitting at Emma's lunch table every day. Their jelly bodies did not shake with fear anymore. They asked Emma questions about Earth and listened carefully to her answers. Dex came out of his shell more often. He asked to join Emma and Kraft's study group. He turned out to be very good at mathematics, and he helped them both with their homework. Even Zix stopped being so nervous. She sat with the group during free time and showed them how her wing membranes could catch the light and make rainbow patterns. Instructor Velith watched all of this with wonder in her 4 eyes. One afternoon, Emma asked if she could tell the class about a human holiday called Halloween. "It happens once a year on Earth," Emma explained. "Kids dress up like monsters and scary things. Then they go to their neighbors' houses and say trick or treat. and the neighbors give them candy. The Grellox triplets looked confused. You dress as monsters? Why would you want to look scary? Because it's fun, Emma said. Being scary is not always bad. Sometimes it's just pretend. And then you get free candy, which is amazing. What kind of monsters? Dex asked from inside his shell. All kinds. Ghosts, vampires, werewolves, zombies. Some kids dress like aliens too. Aliens? Zix said with surprise. But you are with aliens right now. We are aliens to you. Emma laughed. I know, right? When I was little, I thought aliens would be scary. But now I know that aliens are just people from different places. You're not scary at all. You're my friends. Velith felt something warm in her chest when Emma said that .krath spoke up for the first time. On my world, we do not have holidays like this. But we have hunting festivals. Young Vorn learned to track and chase. It is supposed to make us better predators. Did you like the hunting festivals? Emma asked. Krath thought about it. No, I was always alone. The other cubs did not want to hunt with me. Why not? Because I was too good at it. They were afraid of me. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Emma reached over and put her hand on Krath's arm. Well, you're not alone anymore, she said. And I'm not afraid of you at all. Krath looked at her hand on his arm. He did not pull away. He just nodded once, his amber eyes soft. Later that week, something happened during outdoor recreation time. A group of older students from another class came to the playground. They were bigger and meaner than Velith's students. They noticed Zix standing by herself near the climbing structure. Look at the bug girl, one of them said loudly. Her wings are so ugly. Does she even know how to fly? Zix's wings folded tight against her back. Her antennae drooped with sadness. She did not know how to respond to such cruelty, but she did not have to respond. Emma was already walking toward the older students. Leave her alone, Emma said. Her voice was calm but firm. The older students laughed. What are you going to do about it, little human? I said leave her alone. Zix is my friend. Her wings are beautiful. Make us leave. Emma did not back down. She stood between Zix and the bullies with her arms crossed over her chest. She was small and soft and had no weapons at all. But she did not move. Then Krath appeared beside her. The Vorn cub did not say anything. He did not need to. He just stood there, his amber eyes fixed on the older students, his claws slightly extended. A low rumble came from deep in his chest. It was not quite a growl. It was more like a warning. The older students looked at the human girl who was not afraid. They looked at the Vorn cub who was ready to protect her. They looked at each other. Whatever, the leader said. We didn't want to play here anyway. They walked away quickly. Zix flew over to Emma and hugged her with all four of her arms. Thank you, she said. No one has ever done that for me before. That's what friends do, Emma said simply. Right, Krath. Right, Krath agreed. Velith watched from the window of her classroom. She felt tears forming in her eyes, though her species did not cry the same way humans did. That evening, Commander Valdez came to visit the academy. She found Velith in the observation room above the classroom. I owe you an apology, Velith said. I was wrong about Emma. I was wrong about all of this. Commander Valdez smiled. May I tell you something about humans? Please. We come from a world that tried to kill us every day. Everything wanted to eat us or poison us or crush us. We survived because we learned to work together, not just with other humans, with anything that would accept us. She pointed down at the classroom where Emma was showing Dex how to draw a picture while Krath napped nearby. We made wolves into dogs by sharing our food and our fire with them. We built civilizations by trusting people we had every reason to fear. Our whole species is built on one simple belief. Anyone can become family if you give them a chance. Even apex predators, Velith said quietly. Especially apex predators. We recognize something in them. We see ourselves. Velith looked at her students below. The class that had been divided by fear was becoming something else. Something like a pack. Something like a family. It is frightening, Velith admitted. The way humans connect with others. The way they just decide that someone belongs to them and never let go. Commander Valdez laughed softly. That is what scares the galaxy, is it not? Not our strength or our endurance. Not our ability to survive anything. It is that we might love them. Velith thought about Emma standing between Zix and the boys. She thought about Krath running into danger without hesitation. She thought about how these two children from Deathworlds had taught an entire class that friendship was more powerful than fear. Perhaps the galaxy should not be scared, Velith said. Perhaps the galaxy should be grateful. Perhaps, Commander Valdez agreed. But first, the galaxy has to learn. And teachers like you are the ones who will help them understand. Velith looked down at her students again. Emma had finished her drawing and was showing it to Krath. The Vornkub looked at it carefully, then said something that made Emma laugh. The sound of her laughter filled the room. Two predators. Two friends. Two children who had more courage and kindness than most adults Velith had ever known. She had spent 40 years as a teacher. But this year, she had learned more than she had ever taught, and she was grateful for every lesson.